I've made over $100,000 with this exact strategy. Actually, it was a lot closer to $200,000, but I actually use this mostly in the previous bull market, okay? And the reason why I don't technically use it anymore is because I've expanded on it, right? But this is literally ideal for someone whose work days or work weeks are just consumed, right? You don't really have much time to research. And again, I know it works, okay? So I was working 12-hour days between an 8-hour job I went to, and I also drove an hour back and forth. I had 2 hours of gym, or an hour and a half, one or the other. And I also had 2 hours of my own YouTube crypto, uploading and video creation schedule. So, suffice to say, I was packed to the gills with work. I've over 12 hours every day. So I had to use this when, of course, I was trying to find my own project. So I've created it, repurposed it, made it a nice package for you to steal, okay? It doesn't serve me any purpose anymore, keeping it for myself. And again, guys, I've actually made a much more comprehensive version of this I'll be coming out with later, but that's for those people who can spend, 3, 4, 5 hours a day and really dive right into it. So I think this is going to suffice for like 99% of you. Now, if you want to actually have it for yourself, you can. It's free. First link down below, and you guys can grab it. Now, again, I want to stress before we get right into it, okay? A brief. I used this myself extensively in the last bull market. And again, because I was, short on time, I could only spend an hour or two every day researching. And this process, right? Okay, do this next. If this doesn't work, go ahead and redo this, was the best way I was able to find cryptocurrencies without relying on others, YouTubers, friends, family, or inklings, right? This is actually a strategy you can go through. And again, you don't really have to spend too much time on each of these different aspects, okay? The beautiful thing is, the more you do of one of these aspects, whether it's the first, the narrative, the tech, the metrics, whatever it is, you're just going to get better. You're going to learn things from the first time you do it, and then want to learn more on the 10th time you do it. Now, of course, this is going to be something that you're eventually going to be able to grow out of. So again, I've got a lot of strategies I want to provide you guys. Of course, free allows you to expand on this, and the expanded version essentially is this. I've pretty much taken the most important parts out of this go wide then divide strategy that I created, and this is what we're talking about today. Again, this is going to be like perfect for 99% of people. It'll find you what you need to find. So the briefing, this is how I made over $100,000 without relying on others. And again, if you take a brief glance at this, it's going to seem annoying or like too much work, but I assure you it really isn't, okay? It's again how I managed to fit in crypto research between my 9-to-5 job, 2 hours of gym, and 2 hours of my own YouTube extra hobby stuff every single day. Now, keep it in mind, someone would typically charge you over $100, probably even up to $500 for this sort of thing. So you really are getting free value. Again, I don't benefit anything from making this a paid product, right? I want you guys to actually make money just like me. We're all in this damn race together. We've got to beat the big guy. And so I just figured, you know what? Why the hell not? I would have loved this when I first started, right? So if you need help understanding any section at all, let me know. Again, I'm going to have resources available very, very soon, not just going into more detail, but into each aspect and more, okay? Because again, with lots of examples and stuff like that, but that's a course I'm coming out with in some months to come. So now, I'm not going to go into each of these and read you out exactly what I have here because one, you guys can go ahead and obviously use the link in the description to open this up and view it yourself, and that's the whole point of this. But I wanted to give you the process, and that's the most important part, right? So firstly, as I kind of touched on down here, go wide, then divide. We start with the narrative why. Well, that's obviously the thing. It's like, if you're a gold prospect, where do you go to find gold? Well, you're not going to go to region A or region B because everyone knows there's no gold there. You're going to go to region C, D, or F because those are the regions everyone knows there's gold. And that's the exact same with crypto, right? We're not going to want to go to those regions where there's no, gold, essentially. There's no demand in 2025. And so this is essentially what I've done here, right? So the narrative is essentially, where is the money going to flow? So what I've done is pretty much expel or extrapolate where I believe the money will be going into the narratives in 2025, but done one thing better. I've ranked them for you, okay? So ranked them 1 to 10. Obviously, 10 means there's going to be a lot of demand. 1 means there's going to be like no demand. So you'd be surprised that some of these I've ranked no demand or little demand. Some of like really popular projects or narratives, but we have to think in the mindset of 2025, which more or less is going to be pretty much the time like right now. It's 1.5 years away, guys. Not much is going to change between now and then. So let me just read you this, right? We do this first because it's imperative we buy the altcoins that should see the most demand in 2025. So my thought process is we most likely aren't going to see anything drastic change from now, mid-2023 to 2025. Therefore, we mustn't get ahead of ourselves and invest in a pipe dream, okay? So again, this goes into exactly what I talk about in a little bit more detail so you guys can understand. Plus, in my opinion, give you the no-goes and the good goes, if that's even a word, right? But if your project fits in a good narrative, let's just say it fits into privacy, okay, sweet. And remember, these do overlap, okay? We move on, okay? So the next thing is the meme. And the reason we look at meme is simply because we're looking now essentially at the narrative within a project itself. So we're looking at like the meme or the narrative over the whole market, and now individual projects within the prosperous narratives, if that makes sense, okay? So is this project attractive to a broad audience? What we have to do at this stage, once we've found the projects within the meme, within the narrative itself, so finding the meme is akin to finding the narrative, but this time to individual projects. As I said, we must essentially find where demand from a narrative will want to flow to the most. So, the gold is pretty much all flowing towards privacy. Okay, but which privacy project is it flowing to the most? And that's what we have to find here. So my thought process right here is, what is the point of difference with this project versus competitors in the same narrative? We are searching for that wow factor, okay? And this kind of takes you through the process, right? This takes you kind of like what a gold prospect would panning for gold, right? They start with the big chunks of rocks and they go through the different levels, right? They thin out all the rocks and eventually they get the very, small flakes of gold, and that's what we're left with after we go through this process, okay? So again, this is something I want you to go through yourself, because it's easy for me to go through and say, hey guys, look at the meme and look at this and blah, 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 blah. First of all, the video would be like half an hour, 45 minutes long, but also you guys wouldn't really retain it. When you read it yourself and then you have that aha moment, it does make a lot of sense, okay? Now the team. So after the meme sounds attractive, versus their competitors, for example, if the project's doing this amazing thing that its competitors aren't, that's a meme. That's that wow factor that's going to attract people from all different walks of life and knowledge levels to go, wow, I want to buy this project. When the privacy narrative starts taking off, or like it was recently, layer 2s were going off the charts. Where is that project that everyone's going to go, this is a cut above the rest. This one's going to really take off. That's what you have to find, right? But if we found that, next we look at the team, right? And this pretty much is the idea becoming a reality, right? So there is no point buying into a project if the team that steers the ship, again, the ship is the project, if it can't make it happen, right? So scams or other things as well, or they might seem incompetent. So if anything kind of is a red flag at this point, we steer away, right? So my thought process is, most of the time we aren't just buying a token or asset, we're actually hedging into a business idea, right? Because none of this is really solid at this point. So when you buy, imagine yourself placing a bet that the team has the skills to bring what they are proposing to life. And I just go here into essentially what makes a good team and how to find the qualities in that team member and then track it all, okay? But from there, then we look into the tech. So you'll notice that the process we're following here is a process that isn't typical, but it makes a lot of sense when you break it down. Because if you're someone that okay, you just don't follow this process and you just start looking at Project A, like Polygon, and then you look at, Multiverse X, and then you look at Uniswap, and you go, which one of these do I buy? Oh my God, it's so hard. You're lost. You got to follow a clear structure, guys, and follow the gold, follow the money. And this is how you follow the gold and follow the money. Okay, so you have to almost think like a hive mind. Now, the next is the tech. And again, I'm not going to go too far into this, but essentially, is the tech a pipe dream or a reality? So at this point, we're finding out if it's feasible or not. If it's again, I use a good example down here, right? So if I could pretty much say back in the early 2000s, I was looking at creating a smartphone, right? Not a regular phone, a smartphone. It would seem kind of unreasonable, like, oh, really? But it's not completely out of the realm of possibility. However, if I built a smartphone, or said I was going to build a smartphone in 1980s, again, 2 decades earlier, it would be completely insane, right? So the moral of the story is, it might be something that could come true, okay? It makes sense, but can it come true in the next decade or in the next bull market? Something like that. So we're really trying to check if it's feasible, aka can it be done within relative timeframes? We're not investing in a pipe dream here. We want to actually make sure it's going to come true so we can profit from that, okay? Next is token capture. And this is important, but a lot of other people don't talk about this, right? It's imperative. So is the token able to absorb demand from the market? What do I mean here? An overlooked aspect when researching cryptocurrencies, we need to see if an increase in demand for the network or the token will actually require the token. So if Project X, Chiron Coin, is used all of a sudden by every single country in the world, is the tokenomics designed in such a way that when they use the network in token transactions, or if they have to pay a licensing fee or a partnership agreement, do they have to buy or use the token? You know, can they use USD instead? That's not token demand. Any other aspect like that, we're really looking for a way that the network or the business model that is the project has gone, this is how we're going to actually capture demand and make all those tokens get eaten up, right? And so I give you through the process here, but I also give you guys an example down here, a very interactive example as well. So you should find a lot of value in that. Now, guys, I want to say, if you're still watching the video, please hit the like button. This took a long time to create, and I put a lot of passion and a lot of energy and effort into making this for you so it's actually correct. So that would really mean a lot. Okay, let's move on now to the tokenomics. Okay, now this is a big part, right? Because tokenomics encompasses quite a bit. Technically it doesn't encompass token capture, but that's super important by itself. But essentially, the question we need to ask ourselves at this point is, are we going to be diluted? Okay, if I invest money today, is that same money going to be dwindled down in a year's time because of its inflation or vesting, things like that, right? So one of the most important aspects of investing in crypto is the economics of the project. Can we benefit, simply put, from the token economics? This is very important, right? This is my thought process. I see this as game theory. Basically, how can we take the design of the project and spin it in our favor? Again, you know, it's game theory. How can we game the project, right? Do we buy or sell on the days when a large token cliff is due, hedge into deflation or limited supply, so on and so forth? So again, it's game theory. How can we try to beat the system, right? How can we take what it has offered us and actually spin it into our favor by doing this and that? And this kind of outlines ways you can actually do that. And some of the most important things when looking at token economics: vesting, distribution, inflation, deflation, disinflation, you know, and this might confuse some of you, and I get it, right? This is supposed to be something that everyone can understand, but there is still certain levels of this that is going to be a little bit of a learning curve for you. I've tried to explain as much as I can, but of course, no one can make a one-size-fits-all A to Z follow this to find projects guide. At some point, you're going to have to start learning some things. That's where I come in handy. So let me know down below if you need me to clarify anything. Again, I am actually coming out with my full deep dive into all this stuff with the videos and stuff like that. So you guys don't have to worry for too long, but still let me know and I can definitely provide that value for you. Now the next we aren't going to go into as much detail because these are things, again, designed to be quick. Again, this is designed so you can find projects and vet this sort of stuff in maybe 4 hours in total, right? Over a couple days. So it's not supposed to be that in-depth crazy stuff, just enough so you can actually find the good from the bad. So the funding and ecosystem are wrapped together. So essentially with the funding, right? Is there enough funding to keep the project alive? We're not spending too much time here looking at, is this investor better than this investor? And okay, so, you know, Andreessen Horowitz is 10 times better than this other investor, for example. So it must mean there's better potential here. We're not looking for that because essentially some of that is very superficial and doesn't really mean too much as what people think it does. We're just making sure if it's a newer project, they have enough funding to keep going. If they're a project like, Near Protocol, they're already in the billions of market caps or 100 millions of market caps, it don't matter. If they've done their token, their token capture correctly, or they've just sold some of their team tokens on the open market, that's fine, it's normal. Then they won't have to really worry about this. Mainly for the small projects, again, they typically spend, this is actually $500, it should be $500,000 to $1 million per year. So keep in mind, developers and, having a full team structure can be very, very expensive, right? Next up is the ecosystem, right? So essentially, is there enough funding to keep the project alive? Okay, so ensure that developers agree with you and are actually building on the network, right? If we think it's a good project, we need to back that up with developers thinking that, because again, projects can say anything they like. We have to actually have professionals that want to actually spend time, money, and their own resources developing on this ecosystem for proof. If they aren't doing it, something's not right, okay? They're just giving us, again, a pipe dream, right? A sign of a quality project is there's growth on the very thing that makes it viable. Now, this is mainly to do with infrastructure projects, okay? For projects like DEXs and things like that, you can kind of take a look at is there a lot of pairs, for example, or liquidity pools, and are the liquidity pools highly funded? or liquid. Those are the things like essentially anything that shows like the end users like you and I or the developers are actually using it and creating and wanting to actually be leveraged on that network, okay? And if we get a well-funded and growing ecosystem, what do we do next? Well, we look at the metrics, and the metrics kind of work hand in hand with that sort of factor, right? So is the network growing or stalling? Now, we have the 3 most important metrics to actually have a look at here. Actually, matter of fact, guys, it's 4. It really is 4 at this point because socials are actually just as important as the rest of this. New accounts versus active accounts, right? So new accounts, are they growing as well? But also, are the active accounts growing? Or is people just creating accounts and just ghosting the network? Weekly smart contracts are increasing. Again, that's to do with the ecosystem, right? So a smart contract is essentially a decentralized application or a series of, right? So essentially, when they start growing, we know there's more developer activity. Are daily, transactions actually increasing as well? And is their social engagements growing? So that's also an indication that they have a good marketing team or strategy, okay? Now, roadmap is pretty much like the last thing before we start buying at this stage, right? So what is the growth potential? So are there any upcoming events on their roadmap? And if so, we have to find the most important. So I kind of rank the most important on here. So of course, any large upgrades to the technology itself, again, they obviously get a large audience in. If you start dwindling down to kind of, that's a pretty good upgrade, but no one's going to really go, wow, that's an awesome upgrade, then yeah, you might find a little bit of pushback there, or at least not as much demand as you might hope. But these 4 are the largest typically, right? And then once the project is growing and you're happy with what you've researched so far, all of this checks out. To me, that's fundamentally sound, right? We can then begin to look at buying. But buying isn't as easy as just buying, right? There's a few things we have to do here because there actually is something that we have to look at and go, maybe the project is fantastic, but it doesn't meet our return on investment goals, right? So is buying feasible versus my ROI goals? So locate price predictions, which is sell levels, and buy levels to assess if this really is worth your investment based on your expected ROI overall. Use the following to guide you through a price prediction, which is sell levels, and then locate the buy levels, right? So this takes you through what we have to look for. I like to look at sell levels first, aka price predictions, and I'll show you guys how to actually find price predictions over here. And we look at that because then we can go, okay, at the current price of like 5 cents, if we're expecting a $1 token, for example, is that, whatever that is, like a 20x, for example, is that 20x actually viable? If I want a 30x, well, okay, hang on. I have to go, well, I might have to start buying at the 2 cent level, not the 5 cent level. And if I start buying at the 2 cent level, the project's going to have to fall 60%. Is that viable? No. So that might mean you have to go find a whole new project altogether. That is why it's very important you locate the buy levels, or rather the sell levels first, then the buy levels next, okay? And then after we buy, we look at offsetting any inflation or just preserving our wealth, okay? So can I look to offset inflation and or make more money passively? So here we look to stake/delegate, essentially offset inflation if there is any, and we just have to be careful of any, lockups or any sort of, lockup periods or bonding periods where we don't have access to our tokens. So if the project drops in price, well, hey, we might actually not be able to get our tokens out in time because there might be a 2 or 3 week or 1 month lockup period. So guys, the main purpose of this was just to help, the person who doesn't have much time in researching. Again, don't get me wrong, I've said multiple times how I've made a much more comprehensive strategy than this. That comprehensive strategy is literally just building off this as a foundation, okay? So this will get you to where you need to be. You've obviously got to do certain levels of research. You have to actually dive a little bit into each of these topics. Don't just look at one thing and just do very, very basic research. Again, I would say if you can spend up 3 to 4 hours on this sort of thing, and when you get more proficient, a lot less than that, you're set, right? And then when you have more time free, you can then begin to obviously find more things to look at other than just this. So guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope this has been very helpful for you. And if it has, again, leave a like and subscribe for more daily content. All right, guys, take good care. Talk soon. Bye.